Hi, it's Josie, and today I would like to give you my 3 top tips for developing good hands. My hands were always an issue for me. They were forever moving, going all over the place. My coach was forever telling me I was doing one thing, and I never believed her because as far as I was concerned, I wouldn't. And one day somebody videoed me and I watched it. And I was actually horrified, I'll be honest with you. I was horrified with what my hands were doing. If you don't have nice, still, elastic hands and arms, you cannot ride your horse on the bit. It is not possible. The horse cannot go there because it would be like having a piece of metal in your mouth and somebody banging it against it. Just imagine what that feels like. It would not be very nice. So if your hands aren't the best, that's fine. You can get good hands, trust me. I work on my hands every single ride, every single day. It does require you to do some exercises and to think about getting your hands how they need to be. Once you've done the exercises and you have embedded them into your psyche, your body will take over and keep them there for you while you then go on and do other things. Horse riding is all about developing good habits as a rider. So let's get on with it. So by the end of this video, you will have 3 tips that will definitely, without a doubt, help you to develop good hands if you put the work in. I can't do it for you, you have to do it. Your horse will thank you. I'll do the first 2 because I'm sure they're ones you've already heard. But then the third one I don't know if you will have. And the third tip that I'm going to give you has been a game changer for me, an absolute game changer in all of my riding. So the first tip I have to help you develop good hands is you must be in the habit of having closed hands. So they're not closed tight. Your fingertips just touch the palm of your hand. They're not squished in there. They're just touching the palm of your hand. If you don't have closed hands, what your horse is getting from your reins is a bit of a conversation that goes like this. Spot, I would, can, you. There's a whole pile of the message that's not getting through because with open hands, I'm going whereas with closed hands, it's very subtle. And you've always got a communication with your horse's mouth. So it's a little bit like your mobile phones dropping out when you can't understand a word someone's telling you. So you need to develop the habit of having closed fingers. And I love Sally Swift's analogy of how tight should those closed fingers be. If you've ever held a baby bird or a chick, you have your fingers closed enough that the chick cannot get away from you, but you don't squash it and kill it or even hurt it. So that is the perfect pressure to have with your closed fist. And then when you want to give your horse a rein aid, you literally close your finger a little more as if you're squeezing a sponge. And when he gives you the response you want, which should actually really just be a softening on the rein like Spider just did then. I'll do that again. I'm going to just close my my hand on the inside rein. Closed. See, I don't know. Go back and look. I'll see if I can do it again. Watch his nose. It actually tips in. And I'll say now as I do it. Now. See? That was just from a closed finger, or a closed fist, not from pulling on the rein. Tip number 1. Tip number 2, to have good hands, you need to have elastic contact. And the elastic goes all the way from the horse's mouth to your elbow and literally down into your back and spine. You brace those. But you need to have an elastic contact. And that elastic contact starts here. I want you just to, while you're sitting there watching this, good boy, Spider. Turn your wrist over like piano hands or pram hands, they're called. Now I want you to do this and feel if it feels soft or tight or or nice and supple and elastic. Now I want you to turn your hand up and you feel the difference, and if you can't feel that, I'll go here, because it changes everything. So while you're moving backwards and forwards there, turn your hand over and you can feel it actually locks your wrist. Your wrist has a lot of little bones in there which allow it to make that sort of movement and give it a really good shock absorbing capacity, which is what takes up some of the shock absorption, so you've got a nice elastic contact for your horse to be happy to go to. You will never get your horse on the bit correctly if you can't do this. You may have him in a frame, but I'm telling you that's correct. Now this is a really old-fashioned exercise, but it's a fabulous one. Actually, we'll just face you, except you can't have your head in the way, Spides. Can you just drop your head a little bit for me? Good boy. A little bit lower, thank you. Is to take your whip, put your thumbs over it, and you're going to ride your horse. Don't drop your reins if you don't trust your horse. I'm pretty happy with Spider. And you hold your hands, because it stops you from rolling your wrist over into a piano hand, and ride like this for a little bit. It does have the potential to make you a bit stiff through the hand, because you're trying to hold your whip there. So just be aware of that, but it's to try and see if you roll your hands over. Now I'm going to tell you that my right hand's pretty good at sitting upright. My left hand has a tendency to want to roll over. So I know my own faults and I always work on them. As I tell you, no one's perfect, we've all got them. If I'm turning to the left on a circle, I will tend to drop my left hand and I will tend to roll it over. So let's see how this looks. So you get the reins in your fingers first. Then you put the whip where you need it. And then you got your thumbs on top here, and then just go off. Now guys, do this in walk, do this in trot. Don't care where your horse's head is. At the moment you're doing your own training, you're not training your horse as such. And yes, I know that we don't want to let horses learn bad habits, etc. But until we've got this down so that we can do it, we need to work on us. And we are very important, because at the end of the day we are supposed to be the pilot, not the passenger. Okay, so I'll let Spider go off in trot. Good boy. And I will ride like this with my whip here, telling me, turn the corner mate, telling me what my hands are doing. So get your horse trotting. Don't worry about whether he goes around like a giraffe. Spider's going around a bit like a giraffe. He's the right colour for one. And just see how you go. Do your hands want to roll? Now I can still, it feels really good in my right hand, but I can still feel my whip really pushing on that part of my left hand. And why is that? Because my left hand wants to roll over. My hand wants to roll over, and so it's pushing against that bit of my hand. So the third tip I want to give you, and the one that was a game changer for me, was to learn to attach your elbow to your hip. Elbow to your hip. Because if you ride with straight arms, now go and have a look at some video of yourself, and if your arms are always straight and not bent, and you can't work out how to bend them, a lot of people, and I will tell my students this as well, to pick their hands up, but quite often they just do that. They don't actually bend the elbow. So if you remember to put your elbow attached to your hip, it has to bend, doesn't it? It has to bend. This one will help you with turning your horse, stopping falling out, stopping him reefing the reins out of your hands. There are so many good ways that this actually works. In the beginning, you may feel that you get really stiff because you're trying to keep your elbow there, but as you work on it, your elbow should just hang and stick with your hip. Now, I always think I've got a little bungee cord there, because it is allowed to go a little bit forward and then but it always comes back to home base, forward and back to home base. Let's see how this one works. So my elbows should always hang down next to my hip. My upper arm hangs from the shoulder. My hands are upright. My fingers are closed. And therefore, I can have a nice, soft, supple connection for my horse. How does this help riding through a corner? My outside elbow is attached to my hip. It means that I don't steer him through the corner like I'm on a push bike, which that hand goes forward and then that hand goes forward and this one comes back. Sorry, Spider. He doesn't mind. This one goes forward and this one comes back. That's not the way we steer our horse. We steer our horse really with our body, our weight, our legs, and indication from the rein. So if my elbows are at my side, I don't overbend him. I don't pull back. Good boy. And it also allows you to know if you've got some problems in your steering. If your horse is a reefer, by that I mean he pulls the reins out of your hands, how you stop that, so this is a little extra bonus for those of you that waited till the end here. This is how I do it, and it doesn't always look pretty, but it's very effective. If my horse starts to reef, I sit down in my saddle, lock my elbows at my hip, engage my core muscle, usually wrap my legs around my horse a little bit and grip with them. There's no two ways, because at 700 kilos he could pull me out of the saddle easy. So I sit here, lock my elbows, close my fingers, grip and set my core, and now he can pull as much as he likes against that. I'm not pulling because my elbows are here. If you don't put your elbows in, more than likely you are pulling, he is pulling. If he gives, you don't release the split second he gives, which is how the horse learns what you want him to do. So elbows are tucked in at your hip really firmly, and when the horse is reefing, mine are squished in and I am stiff without a doubt, but I do not want to pull. He can pull as much as he likes. He's doing the pulling, not me. I hope that helps you. Please go and practice that. Developing good hands is the best thing you will ever do in your horse riding, but you must have good balance as well, okay? Because you're never going to have good hands if you don't have good balance. Okay guys, thanks for watching.